Like most small towns, the community of Esmond, North Dakota takes time out to celebrate each 4th of July.
Well, hand me that in then.
Residents do what they can to outwardly show their patriotism. But as preparations are being made for this year's Independence Day, there is a vivid reminder in Esmond about the sacrifices that were made to guarantee the freedoms they enjoy. For 1 week during the summer, the Moving Wall, a half-size replica of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., is in Esmond. More than 58,000 names are etched on the wall, listing those who were killed during the Vietnam War. This wall is one of 2 that travel across the U.S., spending time in communities that are willing to sponsor its visit. And getting the Moving Wall to make a stop isn't easy. It takes a lot of hard work and preparation.
Thank you again.
Yes.
And the woman behind that effort in Esmond is Jeanette Arnold, who had been thinking about getting the wall here for more than a decade, but had to wait until this spring to hear whether it was coming.
When I got the news, I was in Las Vegas, and I wasn't winning any money, but there was a message on my answering machine, and when I called home, and they gave me a number to call, so I called from there, and I thought, hey, I maybe didn't win any money, but I won. You know, I felt really just so elated. I was just so happy.
With only about 150 residents, Esmond is one of the smallest communities to host the Moving Wall. Because Esmond has so few people, Jeanette says she didn't really expect to be able to get the wall to come here. But one of the men who created the wall says the size of a community isn't important. What matters is that there are people there who really want to have the wall. And Jeanette says people all over town have shown that they're glad it's here.
Right away, people weren't real excited, but as we started setting up and doing that, everybody just really got really involved. And after they see it here, they just all want to volunteer. They just all want to do something, you know. And it's a big plus, you know, for our centennial.
The Moving Wall arrives in the back of a semi-trailer. It took about 3 hours for 15 volunteers to set it up at the Esmond site. Jeanette says just putting it together was a learning experience for some of those who helped.
When we set this wall up, we have a young men's club in town, and they worked with these Vietnam veterans, you know, and they were like in their 30s, middle 30s, 20s, up to, you know, like early 40s where they, you know, and they don't remember anything about it, you know, and they really didn't. So the wall's coming to Esmond, so what, you know? And as they worked with these Vietnam vets and listened to them, and when they carried all the frames, you know, and set them up, and they'd look, and so many of them, they were just overwhelmed, you know. And they said it was really emotional for them. You know, I think they have a better understanding and a better feeling for what it's all about.
And now that it's here, Jeanette says she's already met many people who come to the wall to reflect on how the war changed their lives.
And there he is, Fred L. Johnson, my brother.
People like Bob Johnson, whose little brother Fred was killed in Vietnam in 1967. Bob says his brother was a dedicated soldier, one who believed he was fighting for a good cause. Bob says knowing that has given him some comfort over the years.
I was fortunate enough he was home 30 days before he was killed. We had an illness in the family, and so he came back up here to Leeds, and I came up to spend the week with him. And when I took him back to the airport, he was telling me about what good he thought he was doing in Vietnam, and the gratification that he had of working for humanity and everything. He'd been wounded twice, but he'd elected to stay there. And but 30 days after he went back, he was killed, and it was killed by a landmine. And while they were on a land patrol, protecting a road for supplies. But it gave me some gratitude from having been with him and knowing that he was confident that he was doing the right thing for humanity. He was satisfied in it.
When Fred was killed, so was a husband and a father of 4. Fred was also the only sibling Bob had, and he wonders what things might have been like had Fred made it home.
Life would have been a lot fuller with him around, you know. I tried to help his family and give guidance and this sort of thing, but I just wish I could have done more. I wish he would have been here so that I could have helped him more, you know, and miss him quite a bit in that respect. Yeah.
Roger Williams and his mother Hazel are all too familiar with the sense of loss the war in Vietnam can bring to a family. Roger's younger brother Norman died in Vietnam at age 20.
We were in Devil's Lake last year and now here this year.
Both have seen the moving wall before, and the original, but keep coming back despite the painful emotions the wall stirs within them.
Well, I guess it's sorrow. At least it is for me. Like I said on Monday night at the opening ceremony afterwards, well, we were to Devil's Lake and I've been to Washington, and it just never gets any easier. For me, it's always hard. Kind of like a loss any young life, I guess. You wonder why.
Well, it's like you said, it's a sorrowful feeling, but it's also peaceful. That way.
Peaceful how?
Well, makes you closer to him by saying the name here.
Hazel says she can clearly remember the day she got the news that her son was killed in Vietnam.
Oh, it was tough because his body didn't get back for 3 weeks. So we had to go through that agony for that long. So, but we had a lot of good support from our families, our neighbors, and our church. Okay. But it was tough, and it still is.
And for Roger, the loss of his younger brother is a weight he's carried for more than 30 years, even though he says he never really felt a strong bond with Norman when they were young.
He was 5 years younger than I was. I started to work out away from home a little in high school, and after high school I went on to college and never got home much, and no, we weren't terribly close. He had a little different personality than I did. I used to get after him a lot on the farm because he wasn't willing to help with chores all the time. We used to fight about that. I'm not sure why it bothers me as much as it does. Maybe because he went and I didn't or something.
Roger says for him, coming to the wall hasn't really been a healing experience. But he comes anyway, just like many others whose lives were forever changed by the war.
I know we had a young fellow that went to Devil's Lake last year. Well, he's not so young anymore, I guess. He was about my brother's age, that was in Vietnam, and he had never seen the wall. And he went over to Devil's Lake last year, and he said, you know, he said I spent the whole night, read every name. So it does different things to different people. I guess to me it's a small way I can pay my respect.
For Darrell Coonan, the wall conjures up images of his own Vietnam experience and is a painful reminder of the friends he lost there.
There's some guys back over in one of them panels, Teta 69, we lost a convoy. Night convoy. 21 guys, 19 of them got her. It's a hell of a deal sometimes. It's tough to talk about. Brings back all the ghosts and all the memories and things that you see in your sleep, and it gets to be pretty tough sometimes, and there's never a day goes by that if it doesn't come back to you, something doesn't trigger something that, and you think about it. But it was the most intense time of our entire lives. We were 18, 19, 20 years old, and I spent a year and 76 days. And it just, and they're never going to go away. The only thing you can do is do the best you can to go to bed with it and not let it terrorize you all the time.
And now Daryl, and other vets like him, are trying to live with what they experienced in Vietnam, a task Daryl says at times can be overwhelming.
Most of the time, most of us cope pretty well. You get put in a situation like this, and it gets, then you got to stop and deal with your stuff, you know. Like the counselor at the vet center said, he said, just, you got a great big rucksack on, and that rucksack's full of rocks. And one day it gets too heavy to carry, so you got to pull one out, one of your memories, and deal with it till you can lighten up the load and go on. There's a lot of guys that haven't been able to do that. And I'd venture to guess that if we put on another wall all the guys that have committed suicide because of Vietnam, we could probably triple the size of this wall. And that's sad. I've worked hard at being a productive person, and I've done it, but there's those days you just, hey, you want to go hide, so you go hide.
But despite his own struggles, Daryl has done his best to keep the memory of his friends alive. That's why he was more than willing to help Jeanette bring the moving wall to Esmond.
If we let people forget, then they died for nothing. I ain't gonna let that happen. Well, when we were setting it up the other day and we put that first panel up, and I said to the guys, you suppose they'd be proud of us? We're not gonna let them forget. We're not gonna let anybody forget if we can help it. These are real lives, you know? You take and look across this park and try and imagine where you'd put 58,219 men. None of them guys wanted to die. None of us did. But it's a job you had to do. Just buck up. And we had kind of a saying in the NOM, it was when things got really tough and it don't mean nothing, you just keep going. When you're 18, 19 years old and you're thrown into a situation like that, and you're pretty young and impressionable, what can you say? You do what you got to do. And I was fortunate enough to survive.
And for Jeanette, getting the moving wall to come to Esmond was perhaps a way of trying to cope with an event from her own past, one that had a profound effect on her and her family.
It was 30 years in March that my brother was killed.
Randy Marthe was the youngest of 12 children. He died in Vietnam at age 20. For Jeanette and her family, losing Randy was a tragedy that affects them to this day.
Very, very devastating. Very. He was our baby. He was a pretty quiet kid. There was 10 of us in our family, and he was the youngest. And very, very quiet, very friendly. Everybody knew him. You kind of think back of when they come and told you the news, and you also think, well, one thing is this really didn't have to be, These many people didn't have to be killed. This was too long, But yet, this is a tribute to them. And they were all, I think all of them were so young. They were just babies. Like I said, he was a baby, and I think, you never really get over something like that. You just don't.
Jeanette says she wanted to honor her brother by bringing the wall to Esmond, and also so her mother, who turns 89 this year, could see the wall for herself.
I wouldn't have gone any place because I'm getting too old for that, but I wouldn't miss this. The people will remember this, I think, and they knew my son real well, so I think they'll remember these few days that we had with the wall. Well, I think it'll kind of relieve my pain a little bit. I know that he's been honored. When he first was killed, why, we heard so many stories about this war. So that was the hardest part.
Having the moving wall in Esmond also brought together members of the Marthe family, who spent one whole day watching over the wall. They say Jeanette's efforts are a fitting tribute to their brother's memory.
I know she wanted it here for my mother, and she's always said she was going to get the wall here before anything happened to my mother, and she did it. And we're really, really proud of her. And I'm sure Randy knows it's here. And I just can't imagine his feeling, or what he's feeling, or how proud he is of us. For all of us, Jeanette, you know, just all of us, just to be here with, you know, to be here for him.
And for the Marthe family, even the spot where the moving wall now sits in Esmond has special meaning.
Because the park was dedicated to my brother. And we lived right up the hill, and this is the path he'd take to school, right through here. That was the plan when I started it. This is where the place where it was going to be, the only place it could be.
Jeanette says the name Moving Wall is very appropriate, not because of the wall's mobility, but because of the powerful emotions it brings out in those who come to see it. And no one knows that better than Jeanette herself, whose feelings for the brother she lost so many years ago compelled her to honor him in this special way.
Oh, I hope he's real proud. I really hope he is. Because I did it for him.
I think it has a large impact on people, the wall, because there's a lot of people out there that lost somebody. What was it, 58,000 names are on the wall? Well, out of 58,000 people, my gosh, how many uncles, brothers, sisters, husbands, you know, or wives or whatever, they've lost somebody. That's quite an impact. That'd be a devastating impact. You know, and it'd be a place to go and see these names. And these names will be forever and ever. As long as the United States lasts, those names will be on the wall. I thought that wall is a great memorial because those are pretty brave people fighting because the country asked you to fight, but they don't tell you why. You just do it because they told you it was the right thing to do. That's pretty brave. That's pretty powerful. So we have a lot of good people, you know, it's funny. But nobody looks at you like that. Nobody thinks, you know, there are no heroes in Vietnam. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever heard of any heroes? World War II, you had all kinds, didn't you? But they didn't have any in Vietnam because the guys come back, yeah, you're losers. Makes a difference. That's why in the song it says, sometimes I wish my name was on the wall. When I first got back, that's how I felt. A lot of people, you were a Vietnam veteran, even on the college campus here when I went to school, they looked at you and go, oh, Vietnam veteran, how many babies did you kill? That was quite common. Your own family members. So, you know, it bothered you. By writing this song, I believe down inside, it got all the problems out that I had, all the mind trips I was going through, all the depression, all the, whatever you want to call it. It's gone. I wrote the song. I do feel a lot better about who I am and about Vietnam veterans. I've always felt the need to write a song about Vietnam, but I didn't know which way to go. You know, it's something that I don't like talking about too much, but it's easier when you write a song. A song tells you a lot more than sitting down and talking about it. And in that song, if you listen to the words, there's a lot of meaning in those words. A lot of guys that came back from Vietnam felt that they weren't treated fairly or whatever. And, you know, in the first part of the song, it says, sometimes I wish my name was on the wall. Well, I kind of felt that way earlier, but I don't feel that way anymore. But the ones that are on the wall, there's parts in there where they gave their best, they gave their all. I think we kind of forget about that. All those lives that were lost, we need to honor them, think about them. And the ones that came back too, there's a lot of them that aren't on the wall, but have died and committed suicide, and there's a lot of them that have killed themselves after the war because they couldn't deal with it. And those are things that we should remember. And there's all kinds of things that, you know, in that song, if you listen to the words, it'll give you a feeling how Vietnam veterans felt. It's something that nobody wants to really talk about, but the real Vietnam veterans, that's how they feel. That's why they don't open up about stuff about Vietnam. They're quiet. And if anything, any of these Vietnam vets that are listening to this and, you know, are sitting there still living in the past, if they would listen to the song and if they would think about what they didn't do anything wrong. Change your life. Try to. The main message that I'm trying to convey about the song is we put those names upon the wall. Just remember Vietnam. Remember what happened there. Remember about the ones that have died. You know, and that's about all I can, you know, just remember. It's just like there's a lot of things in our history that even they're talking about the Holocaust and all this now. Some people say, oh, it didn't even happen. It didn't exist. Well, it did exist. This war did exist. We don't come out and call it a war. It was a conflict. A conflict, a war, when you lose that many people, it's a war. And it's a lesson that we need. Never repeat. And if you got a wall like that, and you've got all the names on there, people can sit there and look at it, and before they ever decide to have another war, all they have to do is remember the wall, and maybe it'll stop them from doing it in the future.
So long ago, quite far away, there was a place where we lost faith. We came back home with saving grace. We gave our best, we gave our all. Sometimes I wish my name was on the wall. We gave our best, we gave our all. Sometimes I wish my name was on the wall. What I've seen and what I've done, I feel so sad. I was too young. I tried to forget, but the memories are strong. We gave our best, we gave our all. Sometimes I wish my name was on the wall. We gave our best, we gave our all. Sometimes I wish my name was on the wall. As years go by, the tears have dried. We've grown so cold, we're getting old. I'd like a place to hide my face. gave our best, we gave her all. Sometimes I wish my name was on the wall. Most people did not give a damn about us boys in Vietnam. Take back those stairs, take back those names, scared to death and full of shame. So here's to all those on the wall. You gave your best, you gave your all. Please don't forget, they answered the call. You gave your best, you gave your all. Put your names up on the wall. You gave your best, you gave your all. You put your names up on the wall. You gave your best, you gave your all. Put your names up on the wall.